Welcome to Three Dads Over Coffee, where the conversations are irreverent, unscripted, quite possibly irrelevant, and always illuminating. Well, so I figured that if there's any two people I could get COVID with through the fucking computer, it's you two.
You're probably right about that. I am definitely not sheltering in place anymore.
Yeah. So how are you? How do you feel about that? Are you cool with it?
About kind of opening up again?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm. Yeah, I mean, personally, obviously, I mean, I know everybody's ready to get back to it, but yeah, I mean, I think everybody obviously has to make their own choice about it. But where I am, there's just been very little. I'm in a huge county. There's like 750,000 people in my county, and less than 3,000 cases, and only like 80 deaths. I mean, you do the math, and that's just really not much of a risk.
Yeah. Well, and I was just reading yesterday that 90% or 95% of the deaths in Canada have been people over 60, and not one person under 20 has died.
Right.
So,
oh, there have been a couple of children who have died in the U.S., but we're still talking out of well over 1 million cases, and of course those get the headlines and they get everybody all fired up. But anyway, no, I mean, we're still obviously just kind of chilling for the most part because there's nothing to do. But no, I've been getting out and about.
Well, I got to send Colford the link here. He's fucked it up somehow.
Oh my God.
I know.
We're each allowed one fuck up.
One freebie.
I got rid of mine before the first one even started.
Yeah. Oh God. Let me just send him a quick message here. So how was your day yesterday? You went out with your kids?
Yeah, well, we have a there he is. He even shaved.
What happened?
Internet woes. Don't worry about it.
Not interesting radio show conversation.
I was trying to shave my head in line for everybody else, and it didn't work out, so I shaved my face instead.
So you missed my funny opening where I came on with this. Like I'm trying to fucking be safe here with the mask. Yeah, actually, I want to show you guys something because I just actually updated. I'm going to share my screen real quick here before we get into it. I just updated our social media picture. Check that shit out. See that?
That's amazing. So that's awesome.
We're just so fucking responsible here, you know.
So we're just gonna smell the coffee vapor. We're not gonna drink it.
Yeah,
so
that's
like the guy on the left has his eyes closed. So I was like, "What is that?" It's just kind of like, oh, "Fuck, what is that about? What are we doing?"
Hey, do you guys? Let's just jump right into it. Do you guys ever get fucking night sweats?
Night sweats, or like something you're worried about?
No, not that I'm worried about it, but like last night, it was warm in here, like a little bit warm in here. I fucking like woke up like 10 times just drenched in fucking sweat, man. Does that ever happen to you?
Those are not night sweats. That's like when your body is hot, you sweat. That's called normal sweating.
Yeah. It wasn't that hot. Like it really wasn't that
Take
hot.
The comforter off your bed.
Yeah, just lay like a nude corpse.
Yeah, pretty much. I actually prefer to sleep with the window open, but our neighbors were out yapping and stuff. So to Scott's point, yeah, if I need it relatively cool in the room, otherwise, yeah, I'd just be laying there sweating like a meat bag.
Yeah, and Tony doesn't like I like to have a fan. Like if it was up to me, I'd have a fan blowing straight in my face, but Tony doesn't actually like that. So sometimes I feel like we're laying in this stagnant fucking, like under some kind of jungle canopy, like just fucking hot and heavy.
Like why is it 192% humidity in here?
Yeah. Hey, was Scott just not into this conversation? He just fucking dropped off.
He's like, I'm always comfortable when I sleep. Bye.
So, how you doing, brother?
Well, good, man. Yeah, really good. Just had a good week. Interesting, crazy week with work and some other stuff that's cooking, but I'm feeling good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm curious to see. I'm curious to hear how that interview went. You had.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. We have the so we're turning our front yard into like a big permaculture thing,
Oh
and
yeah.
so we have no grass left there now. So it's spent basically the week, laying down cardboard over the grass and compost and topsoil and mulch. And the fuck,
Yeah.
man, that's your second one.
I was moving my laptop over because it was just in my way, and so I apparently hit something it didn't like.
By the way, I have a little bonus nugget just to kind of very little relevance, but it does tie into something that was shared last week.
Go.
I had a little present in the mail this week. I finally received my Manscaper that I canceled my order for.
When did you order that thing?
Sometime in like 1982. No, I think it was like middle of March. Yeah, middle of March. And they canceled it, fully refunded my money, and then there it is. And the funny thing is, Patty ordered something like probably 5 or 6 weeks ago, and she's every time something comes to the door, she's like, "Oh, it's got to be mine. It's got to be mine." And we have like one of those PO boxes, like the Flex Delivery, up in Canada. Anyways, her one thing was supposed to go to that PO box. So I got the email notification thinking, shit, this is it. So I didn't say anything. I went and got it before they were going to be closed that day, and I dropped it on the desk in front of her with such pride. I'm like, here's the thing that you've been waiting for. And then, and then like, so she does her thing, and like an hour later, she's like, for fuck's sakes. I'm like, what? And she's like, I'm throwing this in the garbage. I'm like, what are you talking about? And there it is, the Manscaper with the ball deodorant and everything.
Did you get the underwear?
Holy hell. I did not. I don't.
Comes with
Honestly, it was so
underwear?
long ago. Yeah, you can get like.
I got the full kit. So I think you should, though. This feels like a bit of an after school special moment about the power of honesty. So why don't you tell the audience how you actually handled it?
How I handled.
Well, like that you actually went back to them.
Yeah, fair enough. So, yeah, they said it, and I was like, holy hell, that's great. And then I was like, well, I'm like, initially everybody, most people I think would be like, oh, sweet. So I got some free gear and whatever it was, like $70 for the kit that I got. I'm like, no, that's not really cool. So I realized as I was trying to find my order that the way that they respond to customer service inquiries is through Twitter. So I tweeted them and I just said, hey guys, reference my order number. It was clearly there was some postal service and or customs issues, and I did in fact receive my order. So if you want to, I do want to pay for the product. So just let me know how you want to bill me, and I'm happy to pay for it. And they were a little bit vague initially, but they said, thanks for your patience, enjoy the product. And I'm like, okay, will do. And how can I pay you? They're like, nope, we're good. We really appreciate you offering, but have fun. So
Have fun with your balls.
Yeah.
So the question is, have you used it or?
I have not yet. But
this is the last time on this fucking podcast we're talking about the Manscaper. Okay, deal, guys?
Deal. But it had to be mentioned just because you had your story last week. I don't know if I'm going to try and get Patty to use it, but anyways.
So have I missed out on something because you ordered yours in March and Jason, now you ordered yours when? It's like, is every guy doing that? And I've just got no fucking clue because I like shut myself off from the world.
Yeah, every fucking guy is ordering the Manscaper, Scott, except you.
I know that I'm different, and for once in my life, I'm glad that I'm different.
Well, you shouldn't be.
Okay, so hey, I know we're planning to talk about our biggest parenting mistakes or regrets, but one thing I want to ask you guys first is, do you ever feel a sense of accomplishment about anything? And if you do, what are the things you feel a sense of accomplishment about? Because I never feel a sense of accomplishment. Or if I do, it is so fucking fleeting that it's basically meaningless, right? So sometimes what I do is I strive to do things so I can feel that thing that I never actually feel. And it creates this really weird, like, I mean, I posted about it in the Alliance this week, but I mean, it creates this really weird, like insatiable itch sometimes, you know, where it's like, I'm always fucking trying to chase that feeling, but I never end up actually feeling it. Do you guys, so what are you guys' thoughts on that? Do you guys feel that, or
I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you feel a sense of
Yeah,
accomplishment,
but
or you don't feel a sense of accomplishment?
sorry,
Whenever
I
you,
do.
yeah.
I do, but I would say it's with very specific things, and I would say that it has to do primarily with um, like people, like helping people. So there was one instance this week actually, and this was kind of part of my crazy week. So I have a guy on my team. Um, he is from India. His family, his wife and his son, are back in India, and he had plans to go back in April to get them and bring them back home. So I had approved a month's worth of vacation so that he could basically fly there, get his affairs in order, and then get back here. And then, of course, COVID happened, and his whole trip was put on pause. So last Friday, I learned that basically the Indian government was allowing citizens to repatriate. They had to kind of go under mandatory quarantine, and he was looking to get back. And it was kind of a last minute thing. So I was like, awesome. So long story short, he also, by the way, has a newborn son he's never met. So he's got a huge draw to get back to his family, let alone try to get them here. And I was trying to find a way. It was looking like we were going to actually need to terminate his contract. And I basically talked to everybody within our organization, HR, all the way up to one of our leaders, Jason in tech, and it basically went every direction that I thought that it wouldn't, up to and including yesterday, where he didn't even have his tickets at noon to get back home, and his flight was supposed to be at 11 o'clock last night. Only to learn that, in fact, it was some kind of clerical error, and he ended up getting his tickets, and he was flying out. He was going to go see his family. And I felt that certainly my perseverance kind of on his behalf, because I felt that it was the right thing to do, the human thing to do. I was like, fuck, man, like that. It felt good to contribute to that whole process where he could now be with his family that he so desperately wanted to be. And then also, I felt like I did well by our team because he's a great employee and our company. So even if he moves on within it, everybody's for the better. So I was just like, I said to Patty, I was like, you know what? I feel that the right thing was done. I didn't bask in it. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm like the world's greatest guy or anything. But I felt like, man, like that was awesome. So I don't know, Scott, how about you?
I mean, I do. Actually, I feel a sense of accomplishment. Um, sure. I mean, I would say most of them these days, since I focus a lot on myself, I focus a lot of my own energy on my kids. Yeah, there are definitely moments where I'm just sitting there watching my kids maybe interact in a way that is really phenomenal. And it's not that I'm taking credit for it, but I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. And clearly I'm part of this. And so I don't think about it. It's not a pat on the back. It's just, I'm enjoying that moment and it's great. Call that a sense of accomplishment. I don't know what you call it. I mean, I guess it's accomplishment in a way because I've contributed to that.
Yeah, I would say for sure.
And that's massive. There's really not much more important for me, but I guess I would maybe challenge your comment a little bit, Jason, because I have heard you say and seen things that you have posted in some of our other groups. Again, choose the word accomplishment, satisfaction, but in particular dealing with employees who have come to you for advice and then later they send you a message that you post saying, Jason, I really enjoyed that conversation. It was great. You really opened my eyes to something. I mean, you're sharing. I mean, I would assume you are feeling some accomplishment because you posted it as an example for here's what can happen if you're authentic, if you're being yourself. So I don't know.
No, that's a really good point. As I was listening to you guys talk, I'm thinking more like, so I do feel a sense of accomplishment, I guess, with my kids, and and again, whether accomplishment is the right word or not, but and I do actually feel it when I help others. I think more what it is it's when it comes to things that I do myself that I don't have. I really like, so maybe it's some athletic thing, maybe it's some like athletic accomplishment or whatever, or maybe it's some, you know, business thing like landing a new client or whatever. I don't know. It's just never feels like it's enough. I guess that's really more what it is, right? I mean, that's what I was talking to the counselor. I mean, that's the reason I'm talking to that counselor is nothing ever feels like enough. And um, so yeah, I think it's more when it comes to things that I have done my for myself, I guess you could say, that I don't feel. I just the sense of satisfaction is so fleeting that I'm immediately thinking, what is next? And what that leads to is not feeling so peaceful, right? Because I'm always feeling like I should be doing something else. Like I have a really hard time taking downtime because there's a million other things I feel like I should be doing. And so I think that's probably more what I was talking about. I mean, maybe that's a different question. Do you guys have how would you describe your ability to actually relax? Maybe that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. So actually, just before I answer that, if I could actually share um, something that I've experienced with you, Jason, that because I know that in the early days of our friendship, you had provided some thoughts and insight and guidance, and I noticed there was like something um, interesting that anytime that I would thank you, you almost felt uncomfortable with it. You're like, yeah, 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 no, thanks. Okay, yeah, bye. I'm like, it almost seemed to be, I don't know if it's that you weren't comfortable with it or that you kind of felt like the job was done and you wanted to get on to the next thing. But I was like, it was an interesting observation. So is that maybe kind of part of the same animal that, okay, yeah, you've achieved something physically that you had set out to do, and giving yourself any kind of recognition, the fact that you did complete that thing, whether or not it was difficult, you just don't see any value in that. So why spend any time recognizing the fact that you did accomplish that? Spend less time recognizing it and more time planning what the next thing you can do to better yourself is, perhaps maybe something worth considering. But two different things, but kind of something that I've observed.
Well, I think what happens is when you start when you become a little bit more like people are looking for people like to put people on pedestals, right? And so I'm not saying this is what you were doing at all, but what happens is when you become a little bit more public, let's say, or put yourself out there more and produce content and talk to people and coach them, you get that all the time, right? Like people are like that's happened so many times that I mean, it still happens many times a week, right? And
Yeah.
so I think it's more like you can appreciate it. I don't know that it means less. I'm not, but it's not. I'm not awestruck by the fact that I remember when I first, kind of started writing or started helping people or whatever, like in a more intentional way. I mean, I was always fucking blown away by people's
Hmm.
reaction. Oh my God, I can't believe that I had like some kind of impact. Then you kind of accept the fact that, you know what, we can all have that kind of impact on another human being. Right. And when you start doing the stuff that creates that kind of impact more often, the gratitude you get happens more often. And so I think it just it's less surprising or something. It's like, yeah, of course you would be thankful. I help you. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's not like this big sense of, I don't know, satisfaction or something from it. It's nice. It is nice, but it's not, I don't go, bask in it for fucking a day and a half. Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, you guys talking, it's, I've had this thought many times, and certainly there are times when I guess I expected to feel a greater sense of accomplishment at the end of something, and I didn't, and that's a little disappointing. And part of that I think is just me, and so part of that might just be you. And that the expectation that you should feel something at the end isn't it. It just doesn't work that way for me. And maybe that pushes me to keep going to the next thing, which means I do accomplish. Now, I guess to get to my point a little more quickly, I've had this idea that I'm waiting for this aha moment, this big revelation, and that never fucking happens. It just never happens that way. In fact, I was so desirous of this kind of thing. I thought I wanted to become a Buddhist because that's the whole freaking point of Buddhism is this ultimate understanding, this ultimate nirvana, right? And I rejected completely the idea that happiness instead comes from just building lots of little pleasant things in your life, right? If you like the smell of oranges, put a bowl of oranges out on the table and you can smell them when you walked by. And I was just like, that's just fucking bullshit. That was my reaction to it, because I'm like, no, I want to be meditating for an entire day up on the mountainside in this beautiful landscape. And that's the kind of feeling I want. I don't want a 5-second experience of enjoyment. But, this aha moment never comes either. So I'm like, well, I'd rather build my day with lots of little things than grind it out hoping for this big thing at the end, which never seems to come. So I don't know. So I guess my question to you is, what is your expectation about what you think you should feel? And even if you don't feel it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess, do you enjoy the process of doing it? Or like helping, like when you're talking with someone and you're helping someone get through an issue and you're using your AI skills in that moment. It seems to me like you kind of come alive. I mean, that's when you're being you.
Yep.
And that the outcome is kind of almost secondary. It's like you're just in the moment.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is that valuable, just kind of being in the moment?
That's a great question. And I do, you're right. I do enjoy it. Like when we're doing our mastermind calls, for example. I mean, I really do love that experience. I think more what it is I feel sometimes like I'm running away from something, like I'm running away from this fear of being complacent or average or mediocrity. Right. And so I have this story that plays through my head. And what's funny about it is, and maybe this is sort of the first step to enlightenment, is I'm fully aware I'm doing it. Like, but I haven't managed to unwind the programming that says, fuck, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, because otherwise, if you don't think this way, you're going to become a fucking slacker or complacent. And I'm sure that won't happen. Right. Like, or I'm obviously not sure that won't happen, but like logic tells me that won't happen. But I think that's what it is like this, maybe honestly it's an ego thing. Maybe I really get off on people saying nice things to me, or like Tanya will tell me that she tells me sometimes I like to have an audience. Right. And so that could be true. I mean, and maybe that's what drives me. But I just want to figure out how to achieve, because I don't want to give that part of myself up either, right? Like that high achiever thing. I don't know that I want to be balanced. There's benefit to being like somewhat unbalanced, I think, because it fucking keeps me moving forward. But yeah, I don't know. I just would like to be able to do it from a place of peace. And I think what you said, Scott, is really interesting, because you're right. I mean, in my experience, there's no fucking giant revelations here where you're sitting and the clouds part and a fucking beam of light falls on your face and it's all clear. It's like I always think of it like, it's like the metaphor I use is like this film strip running through my mind really fast. And every once in a while I grab a frame of this film strip. And then, as you grab more and more, you start to be able to assemble them into something that looks coherent, but it's frame by frame, and all of a sudden you might realize something, or, make a connection between two things or whatever. And then you have like this new insight. But yeah, there's no giant revelatory moment for sure.
So was there ever a time, like for you personally, that you felt mediocre, or you saw somebody that you really appreciated or loved, or kind of held to a higher standard, that you felt that had kind of, for lack of a better term, slumped to mediocrity, that you felt disappointed?
That's a great question. And
Mm.
it made me just think about, like, I think maybe where part of the fear comes from is that, I look at myself, and when I was drinking, for example, I mean, I deluded myself. I mean, I don't know if that was mediocrity, I mean, it was certainly more. Basically, I deluded myself for many years about the level I was sort of performing at, right? Like, I look back on it now and I'm like, oh my God, man, you're fucking drunk every night. Like, but I had convinced myself that I was kicking ass at life, right? And it was probably like a self-preservation thing. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that I think I fucking deluded myself for so long about, maybe I'm afraid of that happening again. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Does
Well,
it
yeah,
come? Sorry,
because
go ahead.
no, you guys got.
No, I'm curious because when you're drinking, I've been the same thing too. When I was drinking and out doing that, more actively, I was, of course, with people who were doing the same thing, right? And so they were saying, "Oh, it's okay, just have another beer." And now you have surrounded yourself with other people who are, by all, if you look at any kind of resume of theirs, are highly successful and highly driven. Is some of that? I guess I'm wondering, is some of that, I need to achieve at the level that Jeff does, or I need to achieve at the level that other people that you've done programs with, and the people that you're going to, I mean, some of the companies that you've gone to talk to, I mean, some high level executives. I need to keep going. I need to earn this. I mean, you are in a very different. Your circle is a much different kind of person than it was
Oh
10
yeah.
years ago, maybe even 5 years ago.
That's a great point. I mean, isn't that why it's funny because you always, what was that Teddy Roosevelt quote? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Sure.
Uh, but like, isn't that one of the reasons you surround? I mean, I don't think I spend a lot of time comparing myself to other people, but isn't it a natural byproduct of like surrounding yourself with, like, say a higher caliber of people, or a different kind of person, or whatever you want to call it? I mean, what's the reason that you do that? I mean, one of them is so you can inspire one another and kick their ass, but I mean, kick each other's ass and support each other, and hold each other to a higher standard and all that kind of shit. But I mean, I think part of it is too, like, looking at people going, yeah, man, they're fucking, yeah, I want to achieve at that level too. I think.
The double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
it
think there
is.
definitely is some pressure to that, and we've experienced it many times with guys coming into the alliance. And at some point, we should probably explain to people who might find this podcast who aren't part of the alliance what that is. But
Yeah.
we'll keep them in the dark for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
When they come in, and they always, I mean, so many times within the first couple of months of guys coming into the group, they say, "I don't think I'm worthy.
Oh yeah.
I'm not worthy," and they want to leave. We're like, "Look, you make your own choice, but." When you start to hear the language that people use with people who are trying to get better, that rubs off on you. And that ultimately is a good thing. But there absolutely is pressure there.
Well,
And so is it too much pressure? Is it just this really grinding feeling of unworthiness? And if that's too much, then maybe it isn't good for you.
yeah,
I don't
no,
know.
that's interesting. Well, John, I mean, you've joined this group. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into more detail, Scott said, but I mean, this is basically a group of guys that, just a fucking awesome group of guys online, that, are trying to do life a little bit differently than the average person. And so, John, you've joined it within the last couple of months. And I mean, how have you, I know it was a tough thing to do at first, right? I mean, you're stepping into something completely new. So, I mean, what was that experience like of, the beginning, the process of surrounding yourself with a different type of person?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, yeah, for me, I did find it. Well, yeah, I had no idea what to expect. I mean, other than a couple of conversations you and I had had over dinner, but even then, it was just like, okay, yeah, you're talking to whoever, you know, fill in the name, and these are the types of conversations you were having, which I found were interesting. And to the point you guys were making earlier, you know, the quote that is something to the effect of, you know, judge a man by the company that he keeps, is basically, you know, is one that kind of resonates with me. So the higher the caliber people that you surround yourself with, it's, you know, the intent is that obviously that's going to raise your bar as well. And I found, honestly, when I joined, I was just like, I don't know if a question of necessarily if I belonged there, but if I really wanted to be there, which I guess is a bit of a weird thing to even think through right now, because there was obviously some established relationships, which is only natural. But, you know, I found, quite honestly, that there were times where I would try to contribute, because initially, as a new person to any group, you find that you're taking more than you're giving. And I certainly did receive the benefit of insight with specific situations or anecdotes or stories that some of the guys shared that resonated with me. And I also found, like, okay, well, I was like, well, I'm going to try and put myself out there. I wasn't necessarily entirely comfortable with it, but I'm going to share something of my own. Hopefully at least one person finds benefit in it. And then it was basically radio silence. And I'm like, okay, so is this like I honestly thought of more than a few times, I was like, is this a popularity contest? Like, is it okay, I need to be an established member before I get recognized as somebody that can contribute something meaningful? And that, for me, made me question whether or not, certainly, you know, do I want to even be here, or do I belong? So, and I just kind of let it sit. And, you know, I've felt just recently, and I shared this with Jason, that, yeah, I've felt like I've contributed a little bit, at least recently, where I've, you know, shared some experiences and thoughts, and it seems like it's helped a few guys. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Certainly, I don't feel 100% comfortable yet, and not because anybody's, you know, shunned me or anything like that. I think it's just it's part of my journey personally.
Yeah, that's I think that's a feeling I know you've talked about that too, Scott, in our mastermind, for example, is at times is the feeling of taking more than you're giving.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's great to receive the kind of support and even the challenge that you get. But after a while, it's guilt. It feels guilty, because I'm like, I should be able to give back. And I think somebody said to me at one point that, look, I mean, you're giving other people the gift of the opportunity to be able to do that, because they were in your fucking shoes like a year previous to that. And I found that to absolutely be true.
But
That
it's very difficult to see that in the moment too.
of course, it's impossible. And I just had no concept of that. Now I'm not, you know, bringing up some of my problems to give. It's not fake at all. I mean, I'm doing it from a very pretty much a self-centered. I'm like, I really need help with this.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that's vulnerability. That's a big part of it. And people get to know me more quickly, I think, as a result, which helps me, it helps them. That's part of a community. That's part of it. Sometimes people just go through a stretch where they need a lot more than they can give. But once they kind of ride that through, they can contribute. It's absolutely true. It takes, oh man, it's just like, I keep coming back to this. This should be taught specifically to kids, how to go through doing this. You open yourself up. You don't bury your trouble. You don't bury things that are going difficult. You share them with somebody else. Maybe hopefully they don't just give you advice and tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you come through that, and then you see their perspective, that, wow, that was great for them too. You know, you see the full cycle, and wow, where would I be now had I learned that at a younger age? Instead, I'm sitting here with you jabronis on a Saturday morning.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, if that's not a cautionary tale, fuck, I don't know what is.
No, but seriously, no, this is a huge opportunity for me. This, just whether we were recording this or not. I think this is, doing more things like this is absolutely good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I never really thought about that, but I mean, the idea of teaching the importance of this to kids, because I mean, so many people are just locked into, like, wearing the mask or whatever. Like I was telling John, I'm recording a thing at work. It's about kind of wellness and trying to help people who are, people are struggling, right? They're locked at home, and a lot of them don't have the tools. Like, a lot of people, just because they were never taught. Why would you, like, the tools to be able to have self-awareness and all that kind of stuff? So we're going to record a video, and I think it'll probably be seen by about 1,500 people. And at work, and I'm just going to be totally open about the fact that, I'm seeing a counselor, for example, because I think that could be really helpful for people to see a leader who is just open about it, right? But it gets easier. That gets easier and easier and easier. Like, I think I think it's recognizing, like, as you were saying, John, that kudos to you for having the willingness to just stick it out, because I think when you put yourself out there, and it's a fucking huge emotional. And when I say ask for help, or, produce a piece of content. Like, I remember I was telling John this week, the first blog post I ever posted, it fucking took me 3 hours to press the publish button. This is like 2015. I kept coming back to it and editing words, and like, oh my God, what are people going to say? Like, cause it was the first thing that was kind of like meaningful, it's probably something to do with not drinking or something. And, and it was really fucking hard. Or the very first podcast I went on, Tanya had to make me do it. She basically had to fucking berate me into doing it, because I was like, why would anybody want to hear anything I have to fucking say? Now it's the opposite, right? Now I think everybody wants to hear what I have to say, but they don't. But that to get, like, so if you put yourself out there and you don't get the reaction that you think you should, or that you're hoping for, fuck, it's so easy to just retreat back to where you were. Right. And so to be able to push through that discomfort, I give you a lot of credit, because you gotta lean into the discomfort in order to grow. Right. It's critical.
Yeah.
Hard. No, and I appreciate that. And honestly, I would say that's probably if I look back over the recent years, certainly within the last 3 years, that has been the single biggest thing that I've learned, is the importance of vulnerability and self-compassion, which within my own journey, I was not able to recognize and or appreciate. And so whether it's to a lesser extent, joining, the Alliance, but more just kind of sharing my own experiences and or asking for help, which I think is a human trait, but certainly as men, we don't typically do. Just to say, and I'm struggling with this, to even think that, let alone verbalize it and have somebody else hear that for me, honestly, was scary. It's just like, what the fuck? And to have people, to be open and receptive to that, and willing to even talk about it, or let alone, help, is tremendously liberating. And you very quickly realize how important it is to your overall well-being. But you have to be brave enough to even just kind of venture into that unknown. But once you do, it's kind of like, okay, like, it's not completely comfortable, but it's so much better to do that.
Yeah. And we think we're the only, it's hilarious how we all think we're the only persons going through this shit, whatever it is we're going through, whatever we're thinking, or something that's happened to us. I mean, I remember the first time I ever talked to Scott was, I remember that conversation so vividly. And it was, talking about the death of your wife and grief. And I remember I was walking around my backyard. I can still picture it, talking to you. And, just for, because I went through the same thing earlier, because Cindy passed away earlier, obviously, but just to recognize it, holy fuck, there's somebody else that's gone through this shit or something like this, and is trying to navigate it just like me, and to just be able to talk about that is so meaningful.
To feel, hey, we're sharing some stuff, and hopefully there are some people out there that are benefiting from what we talk about. We're not just sitting here dicking around. I mean, some people have said that they, appreciate what we said.
Mm-hmm.
So to be honest with you, not that we could kind of go through that whole conversation, that very first conversation we had, but what was so super important about that connection was absolutely you gave me permission to feel what I was feeling because of what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else wants to just, you're going to be great, you're going to be good, you're going to be, they're trying to push you forward, which is great. It's encouraging, but it wasn't just sharing each other's experiences. You weren't trying to program me to go out and have a good time and to let loose and to relax or anything like that. You just explained your circumstance, and that was phenomenal. That was it was huge. Yeah, I also, that's one of those things, like, people will remember where they were, certainly in the US, maybe more so, where they were when on 9/11. Everybody knows where they were. That's a conversation I will remember exactly where I was at that moment, because it was just it was an explosion. It was great. That's the kind of thing that can happen when you do things like ask a question like, what's going on with this lack of accomplishment that I feel? That's huge. You don't know what's going to come back to you, but it's uncontrollable. It should be. And it's nerve-wracking, but awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, where we get trapped is also feeling guilt or shame about the thoughts that we feel, or the thoughts that we think. Like, I mean, when I look at that situation with Cindy, I mean, it took me a long time to admit that, like, for example, I was unfaithful to her while she was locked up in a psych ward, or that it took me and I think it's not to partially it took me a long time to admit it, but partially it took me a long time to really realize it and process it. But, like, to be able to admit, I still remember I was talking to a group of cops and their spouses, to admit that, you know what? Yeah. When she was going through her mental health issues for 5 years, there was times I wanted her fucking dead. I just wish she would goddamn die so I could get not all the time, obviously, but yes, I thought that at times, right? Because I wanted my fucking life back. I just wanted to, I felt so helpless, and like just being like this fucking, bottle or cork being tossed around in these seas I had no control over. And just to be able to, once I started thinking about that after the fact, it took me a while to be willing to say that out loud, because I had to be, I don't know, I had to get to a certain point in my own head to be okay with it or something. So, but then when I said it, it just takes, people always react in a way when you err on the side of being open and vulnerable and authentic, like, usually the opposite of what you think is going to happen happens, right? I mean, we think we're going to get judged and made fun of or fucking shunned or whatever, but it's not that. It creates a space. I mean, when you share your story, it creates a space for the other person to share their story too. And that's, it's just a better way. And, there might be times you share too much, sure, but I think it's better to err on the side of being open. It just produces better. Because I'm such an outcome achievement oriented person, I was just about to say it produces better outcomes, but I mean, but it kind of does.
Yeah, I think generally though, people share too little, and that's the problem. So yeah, absolutely, you could end up sharing too much, but most people walk around and there's this storm of whatever their story is that's going around in their head, and they're worried about, their wives, the kids, their husband, whatever is going on in their life, money. And absolutely, you hit the nail on the head, Jason, that you feel like you're the only person that's like, why can't I get my shit together? And because I'm the only one, I've convinced myself I'm the only one, I'm going to basically saddle myself with that burden and almost envelop myself in that guilt and figure some way out of it. And often that just doesn't happen. It's really not on your own. And then once you finally kind of confide in somebody, or you've realized that there's an opportunity to actually be vulnerable and share and ask for help, that's only when, you know, the healing can begin, or the ability to actually get some kind of help. But, and that goes back to what I was referring to earlier, is that I did not permit myself to have that self-compassion. I was dealing with a lot of shit going on in my world, and I felt that almost out of duty. I'm a little bit old school as far as, um, you know, being the dad or being the guy and kind of shouldering, you know, certain things. And, you know, Patty was working through, you know, things that were very challenging for her, and that put extra load on me. And I kind of felt like, well, you just need to fucking figure it out. You need to just grind through it. And what is the point in even talking about it? And once I actually started to share what I was thinking, and feeling, then I kind of realized that, A, yeah, no, I'm not the only one. And B, my mechanism for figuring out what the healthy balance is was completely uncalibrated. Well, it just wasn't working at all. And only through actually having some meaningful conversations was I able to kind of see, you know what, there is a better way, and asking for help is part of that. It's important. It's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, you know, it also is, when you think about being parents, being dads, I mean, I think the ability to ask for help implies, you know, the implication is, I don't really know what to do right now. You know, I'm not, or I don't know how to think about this right now. And I think as you get more, I think sometimes I think a lot of people, and I'm sure I've done this too. Like as parents, you feel like you're supposed to have your shit together, man. You're supposed to have the answers. The kids are you're the parent. But I think as you get more willing to do that, and be open and ask for help and acknowledge that, you know what, I mean, life continually throws things at you you have not faced, you know, and you can build a set of tools that will help you navigate them more effectively. But still, you spend a lot of time not knowing what the fuck you're doing. And when you can embrace that is actually just part of the journey, it gives you the ability to just be open about your kids about that, right? Like, so, I mean, there's all kinds of times where I'll say to my kids, like just yesterday, for example, you know, so I'll give you an example. Mel made some fries. Okay. And she tried this new recipe, and they were so fucking gross. They were disgusting. Like, they were not even cooked. They weren't even close to cooked. And she's like, "Oh, do you want to try she goes, "Do you want to try my fries?" And I took a bite, and I couldn't, like, I physically had to spit them out. They were so fucking sick. And I'm like, those are awful. And like, cause I was just shocked at how could a fucking potato taste this bad? And it was just not a proper way to handle it. So, you know, and I said to her, Coley actually got pissed off at me. She's like, I said, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" Anyways. And she's like, "You're basically, not in these words, but you're kind of a dick there." You know, like, "Oh yeah, you're right." So, you know, I went and apologized to Mel. I said, it's not what I meant. Those were not what I was expecting. You know, she's like, "Oh, I know they sucked." Right. But to be able to admit to your kids that I didn't handle that very well. Or, yeah, you know what, when that specific thing happened, just to be open to say, I actually did not know what to do there in that moment, you know, and it was uncomfortable. And, you know, I thought, and maybe it's sometimes I'll talk to the kid and say, "What do you think I should have done there? Or what could I have done there that would have felt better?" You know, and it's amazing those conversations you can have. And I mean, that's a way, not only do you get to grow as a parent, but you get to model that for your kids. And I feel like, man, like you were saying earlier, Scott, it's what a gift to be able to give them the ability of, you know, humility and openness, and just being able to acknowledge that, man, you make a billion decisions every day and they're not always the right ones.
Right. And as we've talked about many times in the Alliance and some of the other masterminds we've been in, I mean, men in particular don't often have nowhere to go. I mean, they talk to their wives, maybe, or partners, but even in those relationships, it seems that the most common approach that other people take is to fix your shit, is to fix your situation, which is really, I became very reticent to share my story because all I would get was advice.
I fucking hate that.
Back. I know. I mean, it's very common. And I mean, it's I mean, they mean well.
Yeah, of course.
They do mean well. And sometimes the advice isn't bad advice, but they're just really, here's what I did. You need to do what I did because it worked for me, and therefore it must work for you, which is just could be a complete disaster. But it's really, I mean, it's kind of selfish in its approach. Again, I don't think people mean it that way. But the other nuance to this is I think I've gotten better. I don't share everything about myself with anyone. There is judgment involved because there are people that I know if I say, here's what I've been through or here's what I'm going through, all they're going to do is they're just going to try to fix me. And I don't want to hear that shit. I quite honestly just don't have a whole lot of patience with that. That's an issue of mine. But I do hold back with those people. I do. I mean, I just do. I mean, it's just a judgment. And sometimes it's just I don't know someone. I just get a feeling that they're not the kind of person that I would share myself with until I discover otherwise. But, you know, I can build a little mini community for myself by sharing with the right people what I'm going through. And usually it's the people who know how to validate. That's such a super important skill. It's just someone who listens and I mean, sometimes that's it. And I think you can even do that with your kids. Sometimes you just tell them, I'm not really looking for a response. I just need to get it out. And it does demonstrate for them that you can just say something. You don't have to respond. Just tell someone what you're feeling. And I think my kids are usually kind of like, what the fuck is he talking about? I mean, they're kind of uncomfortable because it's like, Dad is kind of opening up again. Yep. I guess we have to sit at the dinner table until he's finished.
As they sob into their soup.
Usually it's something completely idiotic that I've done. And they want to laugh at me, but they feel bad for me. So they don't laugh in my face and they go in their rooms and then they laugh.
But you think of how important it is though for kids to see that there's more than just like 2 or 3 reactions or a way to handle a specific situation. Like, you know, as I've termed it as unearned rock star status. You know, I've got 2 boys and I'm losing that time right now because my oldest is 13 and he's going to start to realize, as I did when I was about 13, that I fucking know nothing. But it's, you know, sometimes when I fuck up, when I handle a situation badly, I come back to them and I just say, you know what, I need to apologize to you because I didn't handle it well. And as kids, you know, they always want to please their parents. They're like, yeah, it's okay. And I just say, you know what, no, it's not, because I know that there's a better way that I could have handled that specific situation. So they need to see, you know, 2 things in that, you know, in those scenarios. One, own your shit. So if you fuck up, you make a mistake, own it and be accountable for it and apologize to the people that you may have hurt or that you feel are, you know, were wronged. And the fact that just because your dad is 40 something doesn't mean that he's always right or he always makes the right decisions. So it kind of calibrates their mechanism as they go through life to say, yeah, okay, so I don't necessarily always have my shit figured out. And when I do blow it, I need to own it. I need to, you know, apologize, and I got to figure out how I'm going to move forward. I think that's so important. And as fortunate as I was growing up, I would say maybe that's an opportunity that I wish I had a clearer view of is, you know, there's more than just kind of the typical 2 or 3 ways to handle a specific situation. And you don't necessarily need to kind of grind through it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's, you know, Scotty, you're talking about, I know we're getting close to time, but have you guys ever seen that video? It's Not About the Nail. Have I ever shared that with you?
I think that I've said this before, not to jump in. I think that could be the single greatest accomplishment of all humankind. Oh. That 1.5 minute video is just, I've watched it so many times. It's fucking genius.
I'm going to post it in the Alliance, but I mean, it's really all about validation and people's innate desire to want to fix people, right? When we do it for all kinds of reasons. I mean, a lot of times we try to fix people because we're not comfortable with the emotion they're feeling, right? Like, so if our kids are super upset as a parent, that's fucking uncomfortable for us. So we try to fix it, but that's not what they need most of the time, right? So, I mean, I look at my kids now at 16 and 15. We'll tell them to do shit like, chores around the house. Like, but as far as how to like navigate their life, I don't really tell them what to do hardly ever. What I do is I facilitate the conversations where they can just figure it out themselves. Like, one of the questions I ask my older daughter quite a bit when it comes to school, because she doesn't like school, is, she'll tell me about her assignment, some assignment. And I'm like, what would you need to do to feel good about your effort? Or do you feel good about the thing that you handed in? And I tell her, that's what I want. I want you to do work that you feel good about. That's really all that fucking matters. It's not about what I think. It's about, you're growing up. You're not that far from being an adult. You need to understand the type of effort that you put in, that you can sort of lay your head down on the pillow at the end of the night. So, I feel good. I feel good about that. And that is really, it's been really good for help, because when people tell us what to do, we naturally just recoil from it or want to do the opposite. Right. And so for her, that just puts it back on her in a way that's simple for her to understand and wrap her mind around. And it really seems to make a difference to her. So, obviously as they're younger, we got to tell them more, but as they get older, it's really about asking more questions and helping them see, helping them more, I guess, develop self-awareness. Right. So, yeah.
I think you just asked yourself the question that you're looking for an answer for, which is, what can you, Jason, do to feel good about the shit that you do? Right?
I feel like we got to end it there. You just fucking tied the beginning right to the end there. Beautiful. Well, maybe I'll come back. So based on everything you said, Scott, I'm expecting to go away today and have some giant fucking revelation and then come back.
Right. And then just blow all this out of the water. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, guys. Well,
cool.
I think that's probably it for today. So
yeah, great
go fuck yourselves. And there you have it. You might be feeling a little bit dumber as a result of having spent the last hour with us. And quite frankly, you might be right. Until next time.